The night of the Desert Lantern Gala at Scottsdale's most exclusive luxury dealership blazed like a scene from a movie. Lamborghinis gleamed in perfect rows. Paparazzi flashes lit up the red carpet, and champagne glasses clinked beneath strings of golden lanterns. Then, a battered sedan with peeling paint sputtered into the VIP parking lot. Vivian Ashford burst out laughing, pointing straight at Silas Mercer and the little girl clutching a document box beside him. She ordered security to drag them out while live-streaming to her followers. Beggars crashing the party. Silas said nothing. He simply glanced at a staff badge nearby. He had come to sign one piece of paper. No one knew that paper would change ownership of the entire dealership. If Silas was not poor at all, then who exactly had Vivian just insulted? Scottsdale, at night, transformed into an open-air theater. The desert air hung cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of mesquite and expensive cologne. Golden lanterns swayed gently along the walkway, casting warm pools of light across the red carpet that stretched from the iron gates to the soaring glass entrance of Mercer Lux Motors. The Desert Lantern Gala was the social event of the season. Wealthy collectors, tech entrepreneurs, celebrities, and old-money families gathered in their finest attire, their laughter mingling with the smooth notes of a live jazz quartet. Everyone smiled for the cameras. Everyone wanted to be seen. A row of supercars sat beneath silk covers, waiting for the dramatic unveiling that would mark the evening's climax. The air practically hummed with anticipation and the quiet rustle of designer fabrics. Then, a different sound cut through the sophistication. An engine coughed and wheezed, sputtering like an old man clearing his throat. Every head turned toward the VIP entrance. A sedan rolled into the lot. Its paint had long ago surrendered to the Arizona sun, leaving patches of primer exposed like old scars. One taillight hung slightly crooked. Desert dust coated the wheels. The car looked like it had wandered in from another decade, another world entirely. Silas Mercer stepped out from the driver's side. He wore a simple dark jacket over a plain shirt, shoes that had never seen polish, and carried himself with the kind of stillness that made some people nervous without understanding why. His face revealed nothing. His eyes revealed everything, if anyone had bothered to look closely enough. At 38 years old, Silas had the weathered hands of someone who understood work and the measured patience of someone who had learned to wait for the right moment. He was not tall, not imposing in any physical sense, but there was something in his posture, in the way he held space, that suggested depths most people never bothered to explore. He had built his fortune quietly, investing in what others overlooked, seeing value where others saw only risk. The dealership had been one of his first major acquisitions. Years ago, when it was struggling and everyone said the luxury car market in Arizona was a dead end. He had proven them wrong. Then he had stepped back, let others run the day-to-day operations, and focused on raising his daughter alone after his wife passed. He walked around to the rear passenger door and opened it with care. Bonnie emerged, clutching a cardboard document box against her chest. She was small for her age, with neatly combed hair and wide eyes that darted nervously across the crowd of strangers. A red clip secured the lid of the box. She held it the way a child holds something precious, something she had been told mattered more than she could fully understand. At 7 years old, Bonnie had already learned things that most children never had to consider. She knew her mother was gone. She knew her father worked hard and sometimes came home tired in ways that sleep could not fix. She knew that today was important because her father had knelt beside her that morning, looked her in the eyes, and said, "I need you to help me with something big, sweetheart. Can you be brave for Daddy?" She had nodded without hesitation. She would do anything for him. The document box was heavy in her arms. But she did not complain. Her father trusted her with something that mattered. That responsibility felt enormous and precious, like carrying a piece of his heart. The VIP guests stared. A few chuckled behind their hands. Someone whispered something about valets parking in the wrong area. Vivian Ashford noticed immediately. She stood near the main entrance in a gown that cost more than most people earned in 3 months. Her phone held at the perfect angle to capture her own face and the glittering scene behind her. She had been live streaming the gala's highlights, offering her followers a taste of the glamorous life she believed she deserved. The old sedan was a gift. A perfect opportunity. She strode toward Silas with the confidence of someone who had never been told no by anyone who mattered. Her heels clicked against the pavement like a countdown. Vivian Ashford was 29 years old and had spent her entire adult life cultivating an image of effortless superiority. She came from money, married into more money through her first marriage, divorced into even more money, and was now engaged to Clinton Ashford, whose family connections promised access to circles that even old wealth could not enter. She defined herself by what she possessed and whom she impressed. Her followers numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Brands paid her to wear their products. Magazines featured her as a tastemaker and influencer. But beneath the polish and the practiced smile, there was an emptiness that demanded constant feeding. She needed to feel above others to feel anything at all. Tonight, this shabby man and his pathetic daughter were exactly what she needed. "Excuse me," she called out, loud enough for her phone's microphone to catch every syllable. "This is a Supercar Gala, not a junkyard auction." Laughter rippled through the nearby crowd. Several phones rose to capture the moment. Vivian's smile sharpened. She fed on attention the way some people fed on oxygen. "Did you get lost? Or are you here to beg for spare change?" Silas looked at her. Just looked. His expression did not change. Bonnie pressed closer to her father's leg. The document box squeezed tight against her small body. Vivian turned her phone to capture the child. Oh, how sad. Bringing a kid to guilt-trip people into charity. Classic move. A man in an expensive suit laughed. A woman in diamonds shook her head with theatrical pity. The crowd had chosen its side, the way crowds always do when someone points and says there is the enemy. Silas spoke for the first time. His voice was low and calm, almost conversational. "I need to see George Kincaid." Vivian's eyebrows rose in exaggerated surprise. "The general manager? You think George has time for people like you?" She waved toward the entrance, where a broad-shouldered man in a dark uniform was already approaching. Zane, head of security, moved with the practiced efficiency of someone who removed problems for a living. "Sir," Zane said, his tone professional but firm, "this is a private event. I need you to leave the VIP area." "I have an appointment," Silas said. Vivian laughed, sharp and bright. "And I have a meeting with the president tomorrow." Bonnie tugged at her father's jacket. Her eyes were wet, but she did not cry. She had learned not to cry in front of strangers. Silas placed a hand on her shoulder. "Stay close to me. No one touches that box." Inside the gleaming showroom, behind the floor-to-ceiling windows, George Kincaid stood frozen. He had heard the commotion. He had seen the sedan pull in, and when his eyes found Silas Mercer standing on the red carpet, his face went pale. Astrid Vale, the gala's PR coordinator, appeared at his elbow. "George, do not go out there. If you get involved, this becomes a scandal. Let security handle it." George swallowed hard. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie. He said nothing. Outside, Vivian continued her performance. She circled Silas like a predator toying with prey, narrating for her live stream audience. "Look at this, everyone. He says he has an appointment. With a car like that? Please." She bent slightly, peering at Bonnie with mock concern. "Sweetie, does your daddy know that lying is wrong?" Bonnie's face crumpled. She looked up at her father, silently begging him to make it stop. Silas's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "You might want to stop talking." "Or what?" Vivian laughed. "You'll bore me to death with your excuses?" The crowd was fully invested now. Phones recorded from every angle. The jazz quartet had stopped playing, sensing that the real entertainment was unfolding outside. Bonnie pressed tighter against her father's leg. She could feel the hostility radiating from the crowd, could sense the way they had already decided she and her father were intruders, nuisances, things to be removed and forgotten. Her arms ached from holding the box, but she would not put it down. She would not give them the satisfaction. A sleek figure appeared at the edge of the crowd. Clinton Ashford, Vivian's fiancé, moved with the easy grace of a man who had grown up believing the world owed him everything. His suit was impeccable. His smile was practiced. His eyes held the calculation of someone always looking for an angle. "What's going on here?" Clinton asked, sliding an arm around Vivian's waist. "Just a little pest control," Vivian said. "This man thinks he belongs at our gala." Clinton studied Silas with cool appraisal. Something flickered in his gaze. Recognition? Concern? It vanished before anyone could name it. "Sir," Clinton said, his voice smooth as aged whiskey, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Perhaps you should leave before this becomes embarrassing for everyone." "Our gala," Silas repeated quietly. Interesting choice of words. Clinton's smile did not waver, but his eyes hardened. "I'm going to be a significant investor in this dealership. That makes it our business who attends." Vivian beamed at her audience. "See? My fiancé is going to help make this place even more successful. We're practically family here already." She turned back to Silas with a triumphant smirk. "So, unless you have $1 million hidden in that sad little box your daughter is carrying, I suggest you leave." Bonnie flinched at the mention of the box. Silas's voice dropped even lower. "Call the police if you want. I'm not leaving until I finish what I came here to do." Vivian's eyes lit up. "Perfect. You heard him, everyone. He's refusing to leave. Zane, call the cops. Let's make this official." The police arrived within minutes. 2 officers approached the scene with the wariness of people walking into the middle of someone else's drama. They had worked enough galas to know that the wealthy could manufacture crises out of nothing and expect immediate resolution. Officer Martinez, the senior of the 2, took in the scene with practiced assessment. An old car that clearly did not belong. A man in modest clothes standing too calmly. A child clutching a box with white-knuckled determination. And a woman in a dress that probably cost more than his monthly salary, pointing and performing for an audience. Vivian immediately positioned herself as the victim. "Officers, this man is trespassing. He drove that wreck into our VIP area and refuses to leave. I feel threatened." One of the officers looked at the sedan, then at Silas. "Sir, can you explain why you're here?" "I have a meeting with George Kincaid regarding Mercer Lux Motors," Silas said evenly. "I have documentation." "Documentation?" Vivian scoffed. "In a cardboard box? This is ridiculous." The officer's gaze dropped to the box in Bonnie's arms. "What's in there?" Bonnie pressed back against her father, shaking her head frantically. She looked terrified, not of the police, but of losing what she had been trusted to protect. Vivian saw the fear and pounced. "Open it. If they have nothing to hide, why so scared? Unless this whole thing is a scam." The second officer stepped forward. "Sir, we need to verify your claim. Can you show us what's in the box?" Silas did not move. "I'll open it when George Kincaid is present. He can verify everything." Inside the showroom, George watched through the glass. His hands were shaking now. Astrid grabbed his arm. "Don't," she hissed. "Think about the optics. Think about your career." George closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he turned away from the window. Silas saw it happen. Their eyes met through the glass for just a moment before George retreated into the crowd. Something shifted in Silas's expression. Not anger, disappointment. Bonnie noticed her father looking at someone inside. She followed his gaze and saw a man turning his back on them. Somehow, that small act of recognition gave her courage. Someone in there knew her daddy. Someone knew the truth. Clinton had been watching the exchange with growing unease. He stepped forward, inserting himself between Silas and the officers with practiced charm. "Officers, I think we can all agree this has gone on long enough. Clearly, this gentleman is confused. Why don't we just escort him off the property and let everyone enjoy the evening?" "I'm not confused," Silas said. "And I'm not leaving." Clinton's smile thinned. "You're making a scene in front of very important people. Whatever you think you're doing, it won't end well for you." "That's interesting advice," Silas said, "coming from someone who doesn't actually own anything here yet." A flicker of something dangerous crossed Clinton's face. "Excuse me? You heard me." Vivian pushed forward, still recording. "Enough of this. Officers, arrest him for trespassing. I'll press charges myself." The officers exchanged glances. One of them sighed. "Sir, without verification of your appointment, we're going to have to ask you to step outside the property." Zane moved to take Silas's arm. In the shuffle, someone's elbow caught Bonnie's shoulder. She stumbled. The document box slipped from her grasp. Time seemed to slow as the box tumbled through the air. Bonnie reached for it desperately, her small fingers grasping at nothing. The box hit the red carpet with a soft thud. The lid popped open. Papers scattered across the ground like fallen leaves. White rectangles against crimson fabric. Bonnie's face crumpled. She had one job, one responsibility, and she had failed. Tears welled in her eyes as she dropped to her knees, trying to gather the documents back together. The crowd went silent. Vivian was fastest. She snatched up the nearest page, her eyes scanning it greedily. Her expression shifted from triumph to confusion. The document bore official seals, legal stamps, a notarized signature, and across the top, in crisp black letters, "Owner authorization, transfer of control." Vivian's mouth opened and closed. Before she could speak, Clinton grabbed for another page. His face went white when he read what was written there. Finn Brooks, a young salesman who had been watching from the sidelines, stepped forward and picked up a third document. His voice came out strangled. "This has internal verification codes. These are real. Otis Lane, the head mechanic who had worked at Mercer Lux Motors for 15 years, pushed through the crowd. He took one look at the documents scattered on the ground and let out a low whistle. "Those authorization codes," he said slowly. "Only 3 people in the world know those, and one of them is supposed to be dead." Everyone stared at Silas. He knelt beside his daughter, helping her gather the fallen papers with gentle hands. "It's okay, sweetheart. Nothing is ruined. You did good," Bonnie sniffled. "They made fun of you, Daddy. They made fun of our car." Silas smoothed her hair. "I know, but we don't let other people decide who we are." He stood, the documents now collected and secured. Without a word, he walked toward the entrance of the showroom. Zane moved to block him. Silas raised his hand and pressed his palm against a biometric scanner beside the door. A soft beep echoed through the silence. The door unlocked, and the massive LED display that had been cycling through gala promotions suddenly changed. "Welcome, Silas Mercer. Primary owner access granted." The letters blazed across the screen in gold, visible to every person on the red carpet. The words hung there, impossible to misunderstand, impossible to explain away. For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The entire weight of the evening shifted in an instant, rewriting everything that had come before. Vivian dropped her phone. It clattered against the pavement, screen cracking, live stream still running. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound emerged. Her carefully constructed world had just collapsed around her, and she could not find the words to describe the debris. George Kincaid emerged from the crowd inside, his face ashen. He walked toward Silas with the halting steps of a man approaching his own execution. "Sir," George said, his voice cracking, "you came?" The way he said it was not the way someone greeted a guest. It was the way an employee greeted the person who signed his paychecks. The realization rippled through the crowd like a shockwave. Whispers became murmurs. Murmurs became exclamations. Phones that had been recording to mock Silas now captured something very different. Vivian found her voice first. "Wait. If you own this place, why would you drive that piece of junk?" Silas turned to face her. His expression was calm, almost sad. "Because I don't need a car to prove my worth." Vivian's face flushed crimson. She looked to Clinton for support, but her fiancé had gone very still. "This is absurd," Clinton said, forcing a laugh that came out brittle. "Anyone can fake documents. Anyone can program a screen. This proves nothing." Silas reached into the document box and withdrew a thick folder. "Actually, I came here tonight specifically because of you, Mr. Ashford." Clinton's smile froze. "For the past 6 months," Silas continued, "there have been irregularities in this dealership's finances. Trade-in vehicles undervalued by 40%, then disappearing from inventory. VIN numbers altered in service records. Warranty funds quietly redirected to shell accounts." He let the words sink in. "I thought maybe it was sloppy bookkeeping. But then I found this." He held up a document. An investment contract with some very interesting fine print. If Mercer Lux Motors experiences what the contract calls liquidity concerns, controlling interest transfers to a new investor. Care to guess whose name is on that contract? All eyes turned to Clinton. "This is slander," Clinton said, but his voice had lost its smoothness. "I'm a legitimate businessman. Whatever problems this dealership has are due to incompetent management, not me." George flinched as if struck. Finn stepped forward. "I saw him 3 weeks ago. He used a VIP guest badge to access the server room after hours. I thought he was an investor doing due diligence. But you don't need that kind of access for due diligence." Otis nodded grimly. "And I've been finding cheap replacement parts in cars that should have original equipment. Every time I reported it, I got told to mind my own business. Now, I'm thinking I know why." Clinton's composure cracked. He grabbed Vivian's arm. "We're leaving." "I don't think so," Silas said quietly. Zane stepped forward, but this time he positioned himself between Clinton and the exit. The security chief looked at Silas with new understanding. "Sir," Zane said, "what are your orders?" Silas nodded toward the officers. "I believe these gentlemen might have some questions for Mr. Ashford, and I'll be happy to provide all relevant documentation." Clinton's face twisted with barely contained rage. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am? Do you know who my family is?" "I know exactly who you are," Silas said. "You're a man who tried to steal something that wasn't yours, and you almost succeeded." He turned to Vivian, who stood paralyzed with shock. The investment contract needed a witness signature, someone who could testify that all parties signed willingly, someone whose presence would make everything look legitimate. Vivian's hand flew to her throat. "I didn't know. Clinton told me it was just a sponsorship agreement. Did you read it before you signed?" Vivian said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. "You were so busy laughing at other people," Silas said. "You never noticed you were being used." One of the officers stepped forward. "Mr. Ashford, we're going to need you to come with us. There are some serious allegations here that need to be investigated." Clinton tried one last gambit. He pointed at George. He's the one who managed everything. If there was fraud, he was part of it. Arrest him, not me. George's face crumpled. I knew something was wrong. I knew, and I didn't stop it because I was afraid of losing my job. That's on me. But I never took a penny. Everything leads back to Clinton. Silas looked at his former general manager with weary resignation. You'll have a chance to explain yourself to the investigators. Cooperation will matter. The officers led Clinton away. He went with his head held high, still proclaiming his innocence, but his protests grew fainter as he disappeared into the night. Vivian stood alone on the red carpet, surrounded by the wreckage of her social standing. Her live stream was still running. Thousands of people had watched her humiliate a child and mock a man who turned out to be her complete superior in every way that mattered. Silas approached her slowly. She flinched, expecting fury, expecting retribution. Instead, he spoke so softly that only she could hear. I could destroy you right now. Every sponsor, every brand deal, every door that's ever been opened to you. But that's not why I'm here. He gestured toward Bonnie, who stood a few feet away, still clutching the document box, her cheeks streaked with dried tears. You owe my daughter an apology. Not me, her. Vivian looked at the little girl she had mocked so cruelly just minutes ago. Bonnie stared back with the unblinking honesty of childhood. There was no hatred in her eyes, just confusion and hurt. Something shifted in Vivian's expression. For the first time all evening, something real flickered across her face. She walked toward Bonnie on unsteady legs. Slowly, she lowered herself to the child's level. I'm sorry, Vivian said. Her voice was barely a whisper. I was wrong. I was cruel. And you didn't deserve any of it. Bonnie considered her for a long moment. Then she looked up at her father. Silas gave a small nod. Bonnie turned back to Vivian. My daddy says being mean to people doesn't make you important. It just makes you alone. Vivian's eyes glistened. She nodded, unable to speak, and then rose and walked away without another word. Her live stream ended abruptly. The crowd parted to let her through, but no one followed. The gala was over, though not in the way anyone had planned. Silas addressed the remaining guests and staff. His voice carried across the showroom with quiet authority. Mercer Lux Motors is going to change. Starting tonight, we're going to have a complete audit. Every transaction, every record, every process. Anyone who participated in fraud will face consequences. Anyone who was pressured into silence will have a chance to come forward without fear. He paused, letting his words settle. And from now on, this dealership will never judge a customer by the car they drive to get here. We sell vehicles. We don't sell the right to be treated with dignity. That's free. Finn was the first to applaud. Then Otis. Then others, one by one, until the sound filled the showroom. George stood apart from the rest, his head bowed. When the applause faded, he approached Silas. I understand if you fire me, George said quietly. I deserve it. Silas studied him for a long moment. You failed, George. You knew something was wrong, and you protected yourself instead of this company. That matters. George nodded miserably. But you didn't steal. You didn't lie when it counted most. And you have 15 years of knowledge about this operation that I need right now. Silas extended his hand. Suspension without pay while the investigation proceeds. Full cooperation required. After that, we'll see. George shook his hand with visible relief. Thank you, sir. I won't let you down again. Don't thank me yet. Earn it. The police returned to take statements. Investigators were called. The gala's elegant decorations seemed almost absurd now. Golden lanterns swaying over a crime scene. Through it all, Bonnie stayed close to her father. She had stopped crying long ago. Now she just watched, trying to understand the strange world of adults and their complicated rules. When things finally quieted, Silas lifted her into his arms. She was getting too big for this, but tonight she needed it. "Daddy," she whispered, "why did that lady hate us?" Silas considered the question carefully. "She didn't hate us, sweetheart. She just made assumptions based on what she saw, and what she saw wasn't the whole truth. Because of our car? Because of our car. Because of our clothes. Because we didn't look like we belonged here." Bonnie rested her head against his shoulder. "But we do belong here. This is your place." "Yes, but the point is, Bonnie, even if it wasn't my place, we still deserve to be treated with respect." The next morning broke soft and golden over the Arizona desert. The gala's decorations were gone. The supercars had been returned to their climate-controlled garages. The red carpet had been rolled up and stored away. Silas and Bonnie stood in front of the old sedan in the quiet parking lot. A garden hose lay coiled nearby. A bucket of soapy water steamed gently in the cool morning air. Bonnie held a sponge that looked comically large in her small hands. "Ready, Daddy?" Silas smiled, the first genuine smile he had allowed himself in days. "Ready." They washed the car together. Bonnie scrubbed the hubcaps while Silas worked on the hood. Soap suds slid down the faded paint, carrying away the desert dust, revealing the memories underneath. This car had been with him through everything. Through the early days when he had nothing. Through the building of something that mattered. Through the loss of Bonnie's mother. Through the long nights when he questioned everything. He could afford any vehicle in his showroom. He could have driven here in something that would have made Vivian bow. But that had never been the point. Bonnie splashed water on the windshield and giggled when it sprayed back at her. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always. If you're rich, how come you let those people be mean to you?" Silas wrung out his sponge, thinking about how to explain something so complicated to someone so young. "Because I wanted you to see something important," he said finally. "People can be wrong about you, Bonnie. They can look at you and decide you're nothing, based on your car or your clothes or where you come from. And when that happens, you have a choice." He knelt down to meet her eyes. "You can try to prove them wrong by showing them what you have. Or you can stay calm, stay true to yourself, and let your actions speak louder than their words." Bonnie considered this with the seriousness only children can muster. "So you weren't scared at all?" Silas chuckled softly. "I was a little scared. But not of those people. I was scared you might think the way they treated us was okay, that being rich makes you better than others, that having a nice car gives you the right to look down on people. But it doesn't," Bonnie said firmly. "No, it doesn't." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper she had been working on during the car ride home the night before. She had drawn a picture of their sedan with hearts around it and written something in careful, uneven letters. "I made this for the car," she announced solemnly. Silas took the paper and read aloud. "A car doesn't say who you are. How you treat people does." His throat tightened unexpectedly. "Where did you hear that?" "I made it up," Bonnie said proudly. "Well, kind of. You always say stuff like that, so I just put it in my own words." Silas pulled her into a hug, soap suds and all. "Can I put this on the dashboard?" Bonnie nodded eagerly. "So we always remember." They finished washing the car as the sun climbed higher. The old sedan gleamed now, not with the artificial shine of a showroom vehicle, but with the honest glow of something loved and cared for. In the days that followed, the news spread far beyond Scottsdale. The story of the arrogant socialite and the humble father had all the elements that people could not resist: drama, justice, a child caught in the middle, and a twist that no one saw coming. Clinton Ashford was formally charged with fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. His carefully constructed image crumbled under the weight of evidence. His powerful family connections could delay things, but they could not make the truth disappear. Vivian Ashford vanished from public view. Her social media accounts went dark. Some said she had checked into a facility for exhaustion. Others said she was simply hiding from the shame. A few insisted they had seen her volunteering at a children's charity, though no one could confirm it. George Kincaid cooperated fully with investigators, providing crucial testimony that accelerated the case. When his suspension ended, Silas offered him a reduced role with reduced pay. George accepted without complaint. He had learned that some things mattered more than titles. Finn Brooks was promoted to assistant manager, the youngest in the dealership's history. He brought fresh ideas and refused to let anyone forget why integrity mattered. Otis Lane finally received the recognition he deserved for years of quietly maintaining standards that others wanted to compromise. Silas gave him full authority over quality control, with a mandate to report any issues directly to ownership. Mercer Lux Motors implemented new training programs focused on customer respect. Signs appeared in the employee areas with a simple message: every customer deserves dignity. Every car has a story. The old sedan remained in Silas's personal garage, washed and waxed, with Bonnie's handwritten note taped permanently to the dashboard. Some nights, when the world felt too complicated, Silas would sit in the driver's seat and remember where he came from. And every year, on the anniversary of that strange night, he would drive it back to the dealership for the annual gala. Not to make a point. Not to prove anything. Just to remember that the most valuable things in life could never be measured in horsepower or price tags. Bonnie grew up knowing something that many people never learned. She knew that kindness was not weakness. She knew that patience was not surrender. She knew that the measure of a person had nothing to do with what they owned and everything to do with how they treated others. Years later, when she was old enough to understand everything that had happened that night, she asked her father one final question. "Daddy, do you ever regret not telling them who you were right away?" "You could have stopped all of it before it got bad." Silas smiled, the same calm smile he had worn on the red carpet when the world was laughing at him. "If I had told them immediately," he said, "they would have changed their behavior because they were afraid of my power. But by waiting, I got to see who they really were. And more importantly, you got to see that being treated badly doesn't mean you are bad. It means other people are lost." Bonnie nodded slowly. "Besides," Silas added with a wink, "some lessons are worth a little discomfort. That's how you know they'll stick." Outside the window, the Arizona sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in the garage, the old sedan waited patiently. Its paint faded, but its meaning bright. Some things could not be bought. Some things could not be sold. Some things simply had to be lived, one careful mile at a time.